When I was a kid, I loved Thomas the Tank Engine and Disney movies, but there was another thing that I liked, and that was reading children's books. I don't know why, but some books like The Cat in the Hat, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, Goodnight Moon, and many others feel kind of nostalgic to me, but Maurice Sendak's Where the Wild Things Are was my favorite. I have so much nostalgia for this book. I loved the hell out of it as a kid. Now I just realized that this year, 2023, is the book's 60th anniversary, so I thought I'd decide to review the book, but also the 2009 live-action movie. So without any further ado, let's take a look at the book and the movie of Where the Wild Things Are. This story follows a boy named Max who has a wolf suit and runs around the house, which pisses off his mother. Eventually, his mom sends him to bed without dinner. A forest somehow grows in Max's room, and he sails away to an island inhabited by monsters known as the Wild Things. The Wild Things try to scare Max, but Max is the one that scares them by staring at them. The creatures made Max their king, and they have a wild rumpus where they dance under the moon, swing from trees, and parade through the island. But once they get tired, Max feels lonely and decides to go home, although the Wild Things are upset by this and act the same way when Max arrived on their island. Once Max returns home, he finds his dinner still hot. Maurice Sendak began working on illustrating children's books in the 1950s, but wanted to do his own work. He came up with an idea with a story about horses, but he couldn't draw horses. So in the end, he came up with characters based on his uncles and aunts. Why? Well, Sendak said, and I quote, "They had bloodshot eyes, big huge noses, and bad teeth, and they would grab my cheeks and pinch them till they turned red." His relatives have crazy faces, so he created monsters known as the Wild Things. When Where the Wild Things Are was first published, it was met with negative reviews and was banned from libraries because it was a story about anger, and adults or children wouldn't appreciate the book. But after a few years, it became popular. Librarians said that the book was being checked out over and over again. From my experience as a kid, as I said, I was fascinated by this book. The illustrations are imaginative and detailed as well as the background. I remember my parents would read it to me every night before bed. I even had plushies of Max and the Wild Things, and I would act out the story because I memorized it. Mainly because I saw the animated short film as a kid. I also remember in preschool and kindergarten, my teacher would read the book to the class, and I was so happy. I guess you can say I was obsessed with this book, and I still remember it fondly to this day, and that's all because of the movie. Where the Wild Things Are was made into a movie in 2009 released by Warner Brothers. Walt Disney Animation Studios had an idea to make a film and a test clip was made, but the project never went any further. If that wasn't enough, Universal had the same interest, but again, it was cancelled. Spike Jonze stepped in as director and the film was finally released on October 16, 2009. I didn't hear about this film until a couple of years after it was released. Since the book was my favorite as a kid, I was expecting the movie to be good, and was it? Well, it was different. I felt that way when I first watched the movie because in the first few minutes, Max is moping about his parents being divorced, and it didn't start off like how I remembered the book. And the Wild Things themselves were more depressing, but still fun to see on screen. I watched it a few more times in 2 years, and I realized that this movie was appealing to adults, and not really for kids. The film plot is very similar to the book, only except Max runs away into a forest and sails away to the Wild Things Island. After the Wild Rumpus, Max hangs out with the Wild Things a lot, like sleeping in a pile, creating their own village, or having a dirt clod fight. Over the course of the film, Max finds out that KW, Carol's love interest, had left most of the group due to Carol's mean temper. Once KW rejoins the group, Carol begins to lose his temper again and takes his anger on Max during the climax. I think the main purpose of this film is that we all feel mad or sad sometimes, but if we can forgive ourselves and others, we can move on. Max is a kid with a wild imagination. He's wild and can be difficult, especially around his mother, but she still loves him. The relationship between Max and his mom is well developed. It's something that moms can relate to their kids when they misbehave, but forgiven in the end. The struggles that Max goes through at home is emotional, but when he's alone and struggling to keep everyone happy on the island, it really shows that he misses home and wants to make things better with his mom. Noticing these little details made me appreciate the film a lot more. As for the Wild Things themselves, I like how each one of them has a different personality that relates to Max. Carol is usually hot-tempered, KW loves her owl friends, Douglas is calm, Judith is loud and aggressive, Ira is the opposite of Judith, Alexander is always ignored when a conversation is going on, and the Bull is always quiet, but speaks on occasion. People in suits brought these characters to life, and the faces were animated by the Jim Henson Company. The music was composed by Carter Burwell and Karen O, who wrote a few songs. The songs and the music, especially the Wild Rumpus, really suit the tone of the film, and for some reason, they fit the book in a way. To summarize, Where the Wild Things Are is a flawless book with unique illustrations that kids can enjoy as a bedtime story or for storytime in general. And the movie is a nice adaptation of this book. Even if the filmmakers didn't want this movie to be for kids, you can tell they put a lot of effort into it. If you loved the book growing up, I would highly recommend watching the movie, and even have a wild rumpus while doing so. Happy 60th anniversary to Where the Wild Things Are, and thank you Marie Sendak for making my childhood. Rest in peace.